pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess I didn't call to order, so I'll hold on a second. Do we have any guests that wish to speak tonight? Tracy, do you want to speak on anything? Okay. Then we have a presentation by Ann Pavick, who's our Door County Administrator, on the county's involvement in broadband study. So if you want to pull your chair forward.
Oh, sure.
You can sit, you can
You
stand,
can
whatever you're,
sit, you
whatever
can
you're
stand.
comfortable with.
Oh,
Yes.
fine.
Whatever you're comfortable
I'm
doing.
good. I can be mobile, so. So yeah, good evening, Ken Pavick, I'm the Door County Administrator. So I guess I was asked tonight just to come in and speak about what we're doing with broadband. As you know, throughout the county, we have different levels of service for broadband. It's been one of those areas of a high priority for us. I know Jerry has been actually part of a team almost going 2 years back now in terms of looking at certain things. And what's been a real challenge is that if you look at many of the areas that show like the coverage maps, you know, they show Door County has all this great coverage, and we don't. And it's just one of those things of how they do the mapping. You know, and it's what we found out is, like, for example, if you go by the census blocks, if you have someone like this in a southern area like that that has internet service and they report that, that entire census block is then shown as having service. And that affects how you get your grants and everything related to it. So as I mentioned, we've been working on this for about 2 years just in terms of trying to understand the problem. And then this past year, we decided to put money aside and working with EDC, our Economic Development Corporation, in doing actually a comprehensive study of what's actually occurring out in the county. So that's going to be a multi-phase project that we're working on. I don't know if you've seen it, but about 2 weeks ago, EDC issued a survey that's available to both businesses and to the community to take this in terms of the coverage. So we're waiting for all the responses that come in for that. Also with the firm that we're working with, they're trying to actually get what we consider on-the-ground mapping in terms of where we actually have coverage for internet and where we don't have coverage by the different providers. And that's actually very difficult to get, surprisingly, whether you're talking with Frontier or Spectrum or some of the other providers in terms of what they think as far as coverage. And we're trying to get that all compiled in terms of what we think is available in terms of internet service. The one wild card this year is obviously the Starlink has been introduced, and I know there's been a lot of beta testing in the county, so that's another wild card that's also impacting what type of service that we have available. But the whole idea that we're trying to do is that, as you're aware, for the past 2 years, we've been putting in, grants to the PSC for different projects throughout the county. And we've been, a sponsor of many of those applications. I think there's been, the past 2 years, a total of 16 applications. And I think of those 16 applications, I think 5 have been successful. So it's been very disappointing, and again, just because there's not enough money to fund all the projects. So a lot of our projects have been actually turned down. So what we're hoping to do is, through this study, is identify, again, where we have internet, where some of those areas we have shortfalls, and then hopefully we're going to try to leverage, whether it's, again, Frontier or Spectrum or some of the other providers, or for example, another big player is Door County Broadband. Is there certain areas where we could actually work with them to better leverage or be more strategic in how they do their grant applications and how we do this forward? So I know, for example, just in this area, last year we worked with Door County Broadband, and we actually had all the townships get together, and they actually negotiated where to put some of the towers with Door County Broadband, just to try to get more leverage and more coverage. So that was, I think, one of the first years where we had the townships actually saying, hey, we want to work together and really leverage what we're putting in and try to leverage the grant dollars for that. So again, between working with the towns and then, again, trying to work through this study, we're hoping that we can really try to leverage our future grants in terms of how broadband goes forward. And I know it's still a priority for the county. And what we're hoping to do is, again, try to leverage that study to work with those companies to see if they'll be able to expand or put in for that or work with us on grants to try to move that initiative forward. So it's kind of a quick high-level overview of where we're at in terms of trying to work with the consultant in the study and trying to move forward. So I don't know if there's any other questions or anything else I could provide in terms of what we're doing in terms of a strategy or any questions, but.
So how do you accurately determine demand in those areas? I mean, you say they've got people on the ground that are going door to door. I mean, demand can vary so much in a given area. Do you have any way of measuring that?
Well, we do have, I guess, obviously we have households, so we know where like the households are, but we don't know, again, are they fully occupied, are they seasonal?
Okay.
But one of the things that we're trying to do from our standpoint is just to make sure that we have coverage is our approach. So whether or not we know there's a household there, whether they're seasonal or not, we're still trying to say, well, how do we get that coverage in that location so at least it's an option? Especially through the pandemic, we've learned there's been a significant increase in individuals that have the ability to work remotely for their company. So there's a lot of people that are interested in just actually working and living in Door County now, which has been a huge uptake. We know just working with both NWTC, both at the Sturgeon Bay campus and actually at the Sister Bay campus, they've had an increase of individuals that are actually doing the shared space just for internet access because they're able to work up here and do that. So I guess all those factors are playing into this in terms of trying to define that demand. So I think the only thing that's going to be hard for us is that, for example, if we have wire that comes up to David here and we know there's 3 houses there, how do we get Spectrum to say, okay, we're going to extend that wire that additional mile to get those 3 houses when there's the cost-benefit ratio for that, and we don't even know if you're going to actually buy or subscribe and that type of thing. So that's always a challenge for us in terms of how we're looking at it. So I apologize. Yeah.
That's okay. I've been back in the county for 18 years now, and when I first came back, they were talking about this. And they've been talking about it for 18 years, and really nothing has happened in those 18 years. And there is money out there. There's state money, there's federal money. I see you have the article from our school board journal. And my concern is, it seems so piecemeal. It doesn't seem like there's any coordination to this, and the expense for families is terrible. I mean, I have fairly good internet at my house, but I pay dearly for it. But there are a lot of people who can't pay dearly for it. And I think that's a factor that we have to look at for our kids and for everybody in Door County, that affordability factor and some kind of unified, organized approach to this. AT&T went right by my house. They paid me to put their wire down. They did absolutely nothing with that wire.
Right.
So, it's all over the place and nothing is coordinated.
Yeah. And actually, I appreciate you saying that, because I would agree with you. It's been very, I guess, disconnected in terms of how we would put this together.
Yes.
And like I said, I think just because of our poor success with the PSC and our grants, I think when they're getting turned down, I think that's when the towns finally got together with DCEDC, and actually we got involved as well, and we try to get more strategic in our applications. So I think that's occurring now, and I think that study is going to help leverage us to be more strategic in how we approach it. Because again, if we're not that way, it is going to be really Band-Aid approach.
Exactly.
And it's not going to be a good fabric in terms of how we do this. And there's some opportunities too, like for example, we have fiber that runs through the county that we use for our E911 system, but there's ways that we could also leverage that. And is there ways that we could maybe expand or expand some of our fiber network to do some hotspots or that type of thing? So I think all that needs to be part of our picture in terms of how can we really look at this and try to get something that's more comprehensive and not patchwork and not communicated.
Yes.
You don't want to have a wire here and a tower there.
Yeah, exactly.
But you don't have any service where if you just could have talked about it, you could have got better service or better coverage. So I agree with you.
Like our electricity.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
So what's the timeline on the survey?
The survey, again, was released about 2 weeks ago, and I think it's going to be out for a month. And then we're going to get those results back. And a lot of that, we're hoping for actually more detailed stuff down to the address level, but also gives us an idea of the level of service throughout the county. So that'll be the first aspect. The consultant will start to review that, and we're going to hopefully kind of map that out, almost like a hot map of determining where that is. And again, I know already they're in progress of trying to, again, identify, where Door County Broadband is, where their service coverage, where Spectrum, Frontier, and some of the other providers, CenturyTel, and Southern Door. I know Bug Wireless, way Southern Door gets a little bit of that area, but we're trying to identify all those areas in terms of where we think we have coverage. And I guess, put that together, and then we're gonna try to see what strategies we have, even within our fiber or other fiber networks, can we expand those networks and try to really leverage this and put together a solution? Because like you said, there is a lot of money that's becoming available, so we're hoping that with the money that's becoming available, that we really put ourselves in a spot to identify some true solutions that are, I guess, more aggressive in terms of trying to, put together some ideas for grants and so forth. So,
What does PSC stand for?
and it's the Public Service Commission. So what they've done the past 2 years, it actually started out about $9 million a year. This is about 3 years ago. Then in the governor's budget, that's one of our things for Door County Legislative Days. We actually lobbied for that, and it actually went up to $48 million over the biennium, so $24 million a year. And I know the grants actually came in at $72 million as far as what was submitted in. So that's why we weren't as successful. But again, and now the governor is saying that they're going to throw almost $100 million. And now there's also the American Recovery Funds that are focused on broadband. So there's money coming in.
Yes.
But it's how do we identify that money and make sure that they see it as a project that's the cost benefit they're looking at.
So when the towns went together and that effort failed, are they still actively involved and willing to work with once this study comes out? And that's the words about packaging it better, more strategic? That's part of the process?
Yep. And actually, what we did is the county played a large role. I think we contributed about $30,000 towards it. But then we actually made a request to pretty much all the players, school districts, the townships, just to throw some money into the pot just to make this come together. So there's a lot of partners that are working on this together to make this happen. So I don't think the study will be the golden lightning rod to solve everything, but I think it'll give us a lot more information to help leverage ourselves and be more strategic. Because I agree with you, we have not been strategic in our initial steps so far, and we need to really get that so we can try to get some of this money that's out there.
Well, is there like a Door County always falls short compared to other counties in Wisconsin? Has there been any discussions about other funding sources or priorities in the county such that the county would use tax dollars or something and adjust a budget? I mean, right? Because we can keep chasing money for 18 or 25 years, but if it never happens, and my fear is, people from Madison look at Door County versus, middle of Wisconsin, and right or wrong on the data, they're just going to choose those other guys.
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but sometimes that's a trend, right? So I'm just wondering if there's been discussion about all this fizzles. Are we just done, or do we start going to, I don't know how that works. Do you go to taxpayers and say, hey, we're going to reallocate budget because it's that important, because we're going to get people that work up here and pay more taxes? I mean, I don't know, right?
Yep.
So.
Well, and again, I think that's part of it we have a solid population, but with a lot of those grants too, they actually look at the cost benefit of how much is going into the grant and what's the ultimate number that you can potentially serve. And that ratio for us, depending on those areas, isn't always as strong, so that's why some of those aren't as successful. But again, I think that's where, if we are going to go down that path, let's say we're going to try to leverage more of the county fiber or expand that, I think we need that information to say, okay, we did the study, we're not able to get these players to expand, so do we as the county step in and actually enhance this and make this an initiative? And I think there's support. I think the county would say, yes, that's actually a good use to do that. But this is what you guys do. You have to make sure you do due diligence to make sure that you can actually justify using those tax dollars to do that. So, but that's definitely what our strategy would be, for sure. Yeah.
Ken? I just have two things, Ken. One is, I hope the contractor or consultant that is completing this study looks at the fact that there are a lot of regions within the county of Door that have already done studies. I'm on the Kangaroo Lake Association board, and we just completed a study of who has what service and how they're accessing the service. And so I think having other studies out there is good data that if your contractor, does a snoop on that could help, because it's really hard to get the year-round people versus the seasonal people to respond to surveys, but it's good data. And my second point is, anytime people write grants, you need to hear the stories, and I would hope that they would be willing to tap into Sevastopol School and some of the other school districts to have us tell the story, because the story around the pandemic and what our parents have been telling us through this last year is incredibly powerful, and sometimes that's just the leverage that's needed in writing it red, so those
No,
are just
I appreciate it.
points.
The only thing I just respond back is if you have that, I'll take it. Even if it's repetitive, I'll take it and I'll make sure they get it, so.
I brought it.
Oh, thank you.
Just so,
I'll take
that's the map of the lake and the vendors, it's just, and if they need to contact, they can contact me and I'd be happy. to
Perfect, no,
rest
thank you
the
for that,
day.
I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
First of all, I could give you a big kiss. I could give you a big kiss.
Oh.
You know
Oh, come
how
on.
you know how I feel on this.
Yep,
Nothing is going to happen until your bosses, the County of Door, the Door County Board, says, stop, it's our responsibility. We will take the leadership role in seeing that, and then they have to determine 80%, 90%, 100% of residents in the County of Door have access to the internet. Until that happens, this is a smorgasbord of rework over and over, and nobody can pull the switch because nobody has the whole picture and can do it. For some reason, and I don't know why, the Door County Board cares not to get involved in this. I mean, I blew my gasket the day they had the public hearing and we were all on the phone to talk about the tower ordinance. I mean, and there were like 80 people, and I shouldn't say that, there's like 40 people over the course of 5 hours. Everyone's saying, no, we don't like it, we don't like it, we don't like it. And then the chairman of that committee says, you know, I see these unsightly cop towers all over the country, in other counties, and we don't want that to come here. So let's lower the tower limit from 100 feet to 75 feet, which is now below the tree line, so you can't have anything coming across on your tower, you know?
right.
I mean, like, what gives here? There's obvious, I'm not asking you for that answer, but until the county says, this is our responsibility, we are going to charge ahead. We may have to form a co-op, we may have to form some type of organization. Until they do that, you'll come back another 20 years and we'll be in the same
If I'm
position.
still alive, Jerry.
If they handle electricity like this, there will be large sections of Door County that still are without electricity. Because there would have to be one more survey to see who really wants electricity. Because you know it's dangerous. You could, you know, a lamp could fall into your bathtub and you'll be electrocuted. So we have to go at this very, very carefully. Or telephone, the same thing. This is now a level, as you will, I'm just preaching to the choir.
Right.
But this is now a level of a utility that becomes the function of our day-to-day lives, whether we want to admit it, agree to it or not, it's here. And we need it. And in school here, when the pandemic showed it quite fully what the problems are, somewhere like 20% of our kids had zero internet capability, and maybe up to 50% had kind of, you know. So I don't know why your employer, your bosses, are so resistant to this. I don't know, what do they do in Kewaunee County? Because at one time, Door County Broadband told our committee that we were on, screw you guys, we're not doing any more work here, it's too difficult. You're throwing so many, Door County's throwing so many interferences at us, you know, towers, and we don't want, because, I mean, actually, Door County's one of the, I think on that committee we discovered, it is the only county in the state that regulates broadband towers. No other county in the state has limits on internet towers. But everybody confuses internet towers with cell phone towers, and they're, you know, internet towers like 100 feet or something like that. But we're the only county that says you got to come to us and fill out some forms, and before we'll let you build your own internet tower. So with that attitude in mind, I can see why it's the same it was 20 years ago. Because no one really, for some reason, doesn't think it's that important.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll be the eternal optimist. I agree with you. Yeah, there's been a lot of frustration. But I think part of the issue has been, again, the patchwork approach to it. And and the tower one is just one of many solutions that are looked at.
I understand.
So I think, again, I'll try to be optimistic. I think that with this study, I think there'll be a critical mass for us to be more engaged in trying to find a solution.
So you actually think the county government, the county of Door, is, in a very short period of time, said, this is our responsibility, we're leading the charge?
I think the potential is there, yeah.
So what do you think so the survey's gonna remain open for, a month, it's gonna take them X long to compile the data? What's the next step after that?
Well, to me, it's going to be a multi-phase approach, because part of it's going to be is what are some of those solutions that we can do? Do we look at, seriously, they're going to look at certain things like, do we form a co-op? Is there ways for us to leverage our fiber network that we have in the ground or through the area to actually try to enable that and leverage that more? So I think some of those things will be options for us to pursue or to look at. And that's why I say I'm trying to be a little bit more optimistic. I don't think we're trying to find that thing where they're going to take the full charge, but I think they'll try to, again, based off what some of those recommendations might be or some ideas, I think we can try to push that forward more aggressively for sure. So,
I guess what I'm looking for are milestones. Do you have, by this date, we want to be able to accomplish this. By this date, we want to be able to know who has coverage, who doesn't have coverage, where is the good coverage. By this date, we want to be able to.
yeah, this study is not like multiple years. It should be done this summer in terms of what we're trying to do. We're trying to be aggressive with the timeline, just because we need to be aggressive with the grant cycles and what's coming through. So we don't want to be 2 years out and then all the federal funds and all this stuff that's coming in be gone.
So the county is going to be aggressive with its timeline.
Yes, both for the
And
study, but
and
then,
its action. Beyond the study, you're going to be you plan to be aggressive with your action.
yeah, I think our initial, we'll have to phase that in. So like to me, the first biggest step is going to be is how can we leverage or do better with our grants and work with whoever the providers are, where are the low-hanging fruits to get that in and be successful on some of those grants. And then that's the bigger thing, is like Jerry said, are there certain areas where those providers can't get there? So is the county going to finally look at some of those solutions and see what different ways we can do that and try to make that happen? And that'll be a little bit, that's a heavier lift, in terms of a timeline to make some of those milestones. But I think that's one of the things where if we actually have those discussions and put that together, I think there's some opportunity there. So.
Well, please carry our message back to whoever needs to hear that, and know that we're frustrated with all the talk and want to see some action as soon as possible.
I appreciate that, and I think that's actually great to hear, because we do have a lot of the partners that are involved with this study, and I think what we're going to try to do is leverage that. Once this gets that critical mass, I think it's this type of activity, hearing that type of things, that's really going to, as Jerry said, we're going to raise the overall level of that we really need some significant action. It helps. It is truly a utility. It's a necessity now. It's not a nicety. So.
I think some of the shockwaves occurred a few years ago at economic development, when some of the northern people were saying, for the first time, the tourists coming here were saying, we are not coming back to Door County anymore because I cannot contact my office, I cannot do my work because there's not decent internet in Door. We'll go to another vacation place site that has internet.
I know, for example, and again, it's one of those odd things, but with, to me it's a model, but like Washington Island, I don't know if you're aware of that, but Washington Island, they're actually going to try to run fiber to every single home.
Yeah, they got fiber to the island already, right
Yeah.
out the county, all the way
Yep, so-
right past us.
Yep, so there's the fiber in the ground there. It's not fully connected. We have a grant for that, so that should be done later this summer. But then the thing that helps with them is they already have the utility. So the utility's just taking it on, and they're going to make it part of their utility. So it's kind of a natural transition to that. But I think that's a model that for some of the stuff that we can look at, if we could leverage some of the fiber, some of that opportunity, could we actually do something like a co-op or that type of thing?
I think it's going to be a combination of many modalities. It's
Yep.
going to be fiber, it's going to be broadband, it's going to be cable,
It's going to be cable. It's going to be a mixture.
Okay.
But the idea is that we got to try to get it where it's viable, affordable, and, we're really saturated, so I agree with you. But I appreciate the comments, and I will take that back for sure.
Great,
So
thank you.
I think Mr. Pavic got our message.
No, it's great.
That's very good.
No, I'm trying,
Does anybody else have questions for him?
Well, I want to thank you, and I'm optimistic because his boss is letting him do some of this, right? You're doing a study. And the only other question I have is, does this study, back to your demand, or has someone already, is there a way to capture how significant, like the utility, we refer to a utility, but aren't there studies out there that show you that in your everyday life, this type of access is almost a utility? Has the county looked at that? I mean, to better inform the board members to say, it's not my personal preference, yeah, I really need electricity everywhere. So does that exist? Have we run across that type of data gathering so you can bring it to the board so they can go to the taxpayer and say, it really is time for us to be more than chatter, right? It's time.
Yes.
So I mean, that would be, I think, the one piece, because you do all this data for, here's our coverage, but have we convinced them that they need electricity in every house yet? And that's the data, right?
Yeah.
And so other towns, somebody's had to have done that, right? And I don't know how to find it.
No, I think the good news on that is I think this pandemic has showed us that. So
Oh, very good.
I think
I agree.
I
I know
think
it.
that's one of those where, we'll want to see the data, but I think that point
Yes, sir.
has definitely been made
Thank
strong
you.
with that, so.
Well, I think there's information out there that can be helpful,
Yeah,
like this.
I agree.
Which deals with all the schools in the state.
So thank you.
Thank you so much
Yes, thank you.
for coming out and braving our construction
Oh, yeah.
walkway.
You mind if I seat back?
That's
I'll
cool.
let
That's
you
the only-
know.
Don't tell the fire.
I was gonna start seating.
Don't tell the fire marshal.
I see nothing. Thank you, it was very nice, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a trivia question. The most wired city in the United States, where every home has fiber connected.
There's a Google town somewhere in South Carolina in there.
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
You talk to them.
Somebody somewhere decided they're going to wire fiber to every home, and they did.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. Is any items anyone wishes to remove from the consent agenda? If there are none, we will approve the consent agenda by consent with a $1,000 donation from Barb and Mike Bannon for the new playground, and Seth and Katie Thomas, $300 for the 5th grade Trees for Tomorrow trip. And then we'll move to the administrator's reports. Mr. Hiltz.
Thank you very much. Speaking of money for a playground, I know that is set aside for refurbishing the playground that we have had in the past, but one of the things I'd like to highlight is the new and improved playground for the primary level students. Real exciting to see the development and see it kind of finished. Exciting to see some of the things that are in there that will give kids an opportunity to do some learning through play that isn't available at our old playground. In addition to that is kind of having kind of an open space that we can utilize for gym classes, or even the primary grades can go out and do some outside activities with the kids, not worrying about getting muddy and those kind of things. So real exciting. If you get a chance, check it out. It really turned out nice. In terms of something that we're looking at needing to do some growth with, and I'll talk more about this later, but it ties in with the board goals and working on the data. And the timelines are what the timelines are in terms of when we get that data to be able to look at it. And again, I'll talk about that some more later this evening, but it's just frustrating because it'd be nice to get at some of that stuff sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Mayor and Mrs. Markgraf are not here tonight, so I guess if you have questions, you can follow up with them at your leisure, or if you think Mr. Lukey can answer it, you can.
The science
Ask him.
curriculum books or textbooks are over here. Mr. Mayor wanted them here in case someone peruse them.
Did anyone want to pose questions to Mr. Lukey on the athletic director gifted and talented report? If not, then we will move to the superintendent's report.
I put a hard copy in your tables. Two things I want to highlight. One is I earlier this week had a meeting with North County Public Health, North County Medical Center about COVID and school in the fall. I invited Sue Powers to our July 15th meeting because she hopefully will have a matrix or a chart for if we're still quarantining or social distancing and contact tracing. They're down to one tracer now at the county, and they would like the schools to be the tracers when we're back in session. And so I said, well, you've got to come up with a matrix, and I want to know what's the requirement, what's the recommendation. And so Sue agreed to come here to our next board meeting and give that presentation because
Well, wouldn't it all be a recommendation?
I don't know. And that
Because
was not
that would be
clear.
established that
That was not
she
clear in
can't
our
get a
meeting on
requirement
Tuesday.
unless she shuts us down.
Yep. And then the state has decided that the county can't shut you down anymore for help like that.
So, can you, or is she gonna bring the data that supports this?
She's
Because I'm
going to
paying
bring
attention
it.
to youth,
Yeah,
kids.
that's why I told her I
the
wanted to
risk for
chart
kids.
with, because we talked about if you've been vaccinated or not been vaccinated, you'd be in one group or another group, and kids under the age of 12 can't get the vaccine at this point, and so I
But
told
the
her.
numbers for kids in school is ridiculously low.
That's correct, and that's why I told her.
From
that-
CDC, I don't even, so I mean, it'll be fun discussion. So it's a
I'm
recommendation.
100% agreeing, and that's why, it was a frustrating meeting on Tuesday, so.
And our staff has had every opportunity to get it, so I mean, we'll have that
Every
discussion.
adult
when
in
she's here.
the county's had the
You're
opportunity
right,
on the
you're right.
vaccine. Yeah, people have made their choices.
What percent of staff do you have?
I haven't asked them because that's private
I can't tell you,
information.
it's CEPA, yeah.
And so I don't ask. I could ask
No,
if they
you
could
can't.
voluntarily give that information, but I can't require them to say, I've been vaccinated or not. I know,
Or is it most highly vaccinated?
if I had to
county
guess,
like
we're
the
pretty good. I mean, I don't know, I'm not gonna ask staff, have you been vaccinated or not? That's their private information, that's theirs. But I would say we've gotta have, we're well over, gosh, if I had to guess.
We don't have to solve that here, I'm just curious on what she's gonna bring
80-90% I
us.
bet are.
I was just curious because if having kids that can be in the younger kids can't be
Because it's not for their age group yet. Right. So I got Sue coming on the 15th. Also, I was working with Mary Gerbig on the memorandum of understanding with the Mighty Pioneer Organization, and Mary would like to know what the terms the board wants in the MOU and what terms are different than our facility use agreement. So I thought maybe this should go back to our athletic committee and we sit down. I did attach with you our use of district facilities policy and our application for using the facilities on there. I thought our athletic committee could take a deeper look, unless you want to discuss it right now, but I thought that'd be a better item for the committee. And then Monday finished out our spring sports season with the town hall using their fields, because softball ended on Monday. And I attached here our 3-year agreement where it's $3,500 a year, where they provide the fields and the labor costs for preparing the diamonds. Mrs. Tank and I have discussed how many times we've had games over, how many times our staff's had to go over there, so I'd like our athletic committee to take a look at that and figure out in July if we were going to recommend the board pay the whole rate, or if we're going to prorate it for the amount we've been over there doing our work on their fields. So,
I would suggest that, considering your past experience, you make sure there's something in the contract on how, if you have to do it, how that affects the monthly fee.
I think we do.
Specific dollar fee.
We have that in there.
I think that is the understanding.
There is a guy, we have there's the letter they signed that's attached, but there's a longer description. So that's where I think the athletic committee will be able to refer to that agreement.
Well, what I'm
And,
saying, if it's $3,500, X number of dollars a month for
Yeah.
the field, and he has to spend, the school has to spend 10 hours, the cost for that 10 hours is X number of dollars per hour. You use that formula, so let's say it's $50, okay, an hour. You had to spend 10 man hours over this past month. So you take $10, $500 off the $3,800, and so our fee for that month is $3,300.
right, that's why I'm going to throw it back to the committee so we can sit and work on that.
That's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
And it's no, it's black and white.
It's part of the baby steps forward, right? It says.
Right.
Now you can
We're
take a little
getting
bigger
there.
step.
And so that's my report.
Did. Communication committee is a little bit quiet for the summer. We'll be having a meeting here pretty soon to start planning a newsletter for the school opens. You should have gotten the last Pioneer Times in the Pulse a week or so ago. It's another good addition, I thought. Property, buildings, and grounds.
We were here on June 2, but the whole group wasn't able to make it. Since then, Mrs. Tank and myself met with Andy Betcher from Door County Medical Center Foundation. He gave us some good insight on Tuesday when we met, and we'd like to set up our next meeting Monday, June 28th at 7:30. Brooke coaches 3 teams in the summertime, so her availability is not the greatest. So we were hoping for Monday, June 28th at 7:30. So Dick, Dave, and Lisa, if you can make that night at that time.
June 28th?
Monday, June 28th at 7:30. We got really good insight on Tuesday from Andy. It was fantastic.
Great.
I could support that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be coming to see us.
Athletic committee?
Yeah, I'll be back. Yeah.
We haven't met since.
We
Yeah,
haven't.
28th is good for me,
Okay.
Sounds like we will probably be having a
Yeah,
meeting.
definitely need to discuss.
7:30.
I'll let the Brooke talk to you guys. We'll figure out a time before it was going to be. Okay.
Budget.
Budget. For ESSER 1 funds have been submitted and approved, and we received $54,208. For ESSER 2 funds, the total allocation thus far is $198,876. Carl has submitted claims that have been approved, but we're waiting to receive the payment for $25,639.32. He's also submitted claims for $117,754.12. DPI has to approve that, and then after they tell you get it approved, then they send the payment. Regardless of whether it comes in June or after July 1st, it'll be on the 2020 or 2019-20 budget, this year's cycle. And there's another portion of ESSER 2 that's not been released yet because all the schools had to submit how much in-person education they provided this year. And that should help us because we were in session except for that little window in December when we didn't have enough substitutes to cover and adults around. But the larger districts in the state, Madison, Milwaukee, Green Bay, weren't in person, and so that'll help us because their enrollment is so large that since they weren't in session, we should get more. But the allotments, we're talking about another $38,000. And then ESSER 3, the procedure will be similar to ESSER 2, but we don't know how that's going to be until the state budget comes out, what the feds say about the state budget, so we'll let them find it out first. But we're sitting pretty good with ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds. And then Fund 46, as we wrap up the financial year, Carl and I will work on what's appropriate for transferring from Fund 10 to 46. We'll analyze the overall budget, but then we'll specifically look at the 2 areas of 254-200 maintenance of services for sites and 254-300 maintenance of services for buildings. And we'll see if there's ability to transfer into Fund 46, which we have access to because that fund was opened up over 5 years ago. So that goes right towards maintenance and future projects. That's good. And then Fund 50, the revenue is up in the food service industry because all the breakfasts and the lunches were reimbursable this year. We're waiting for the final claims to arrive. Our expenses were up a little bit in this area because we had some COVID-related items, which Carl's making sure those items are claimed for, and then Fund 50 will get credited for them. Before we started the year, we estimated we'd transfer $100,280 from Fund 10 to Fund 50, but I'm anticipating that figure to be closer to $60,000. The fully reimbursed meals will continue through next school year, and that's good for the school district. It doesn't really help our families that much because our free and reduced lunch rate is around 33%. Those kids were already getting free lunches. It helps our middle class and our upper class families I use my own family as an example. Usually I paid $100 to the school a month for my kids' lunches. Well, this last year I didn't pay anything, so my expenses in my household went down $900. But my household didn't need that because I had my income coming in all year. It's the poor that should have got more of a break. So it helps the school district, but it doesn't help the poor families. So it's a good thing, but it's not as great as folks say, oh, everyone got free lunch. Well, okay. I mean, some kids.
But then you can donate more to your charitable cause, which you have more responsibility.
There you go. Yes, I've got to make.
Or
Yeah.
you can make a budget cut.
Okay, there you go. I'm just saying that.
I'm just saying you're empowered.
Something silly in here, okay?
Right. Yeah. It just isn't as great as what you think. So that's yeah.
But what it does is take away some of the emotional part of it for children who
Sure.
receive free lunch.
But that's not the way they did it.
No, it's
That's
not
not
why,
why
but
they did it.
it's a nice result of that, so the
Yeah,
children
it's
don't
a
feel they're
secondary
being
product.
singled out.
Right. Right. Because usually with free and reduced lunch, the older kids stop participating in the program because
Right.
of the stigma that goes with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
How does this thing come, don't they come through type of coding or something?
Yeah, but you gotta come in, you gotta fill in the paperwork,
Yeah.
and it's just a little embarrassing and stuff,
But
and
that's not in front of kids, right?
it's
No.
not.
But our parents don't, parents, we have a very proud community, they do not want to apply.
Right.
Exactly,
Okay.
There's the stigma with it,
yeah.
and that's universal. That's the budget.
That's the budget of facilities.
That's right.
You mentioned the Boys and Girls Club.
Uh,
See about this stuff, everybody, regardless of your, everybody's, says the line at the end of the programs is lunch bags at the door to take home.
Well, we will for all next year, because that's how the system works, so. Existing building, the demo's on schedule, and if you've driven past, you see where we're at. It's supposed to take 4 to 6 weeks total. The abatement of the 1965 part, they've abated the face room and part of the front entranceway, and the new district office, they've done 2 sections of it, and they'll do the other 2 later. They gotta seal it off so we're safe, and right now they've sealed off the science wing all the way down here to Mr. Phillips' room, because they're taking it out the hallway, the English room, and the 3 science rooms all have asbestos in it, so we're sealed in here from those areas, and then when they're done with that, they'll block it off the other direction so it covers the hallway going down the steps by the locker rooms and the cafeteria out to the new addition. So that's all moving pretty well. A little oddity, over by door 3, the cement pad going out was all busted up, so we wanted a new one there before the asphalt comes in. Well, when they're breaking up the old concrete, they actually hit the tunnel, which no one knew went past the doorway. And so one of the guys had to crawl from the new addition all the way through. It's a 4-foot tunnel all the way over there. And then they had to patchwork it a little bit, so it cost a little bit more than what it normally should have. But
Man,
there's some pipes down there, and the guy's hammering them down there.
Parties, I mean.
No, not that we know of. The guy came back out, so we're okay. So, but no one knew the tunnel went past door 3 and why it would. And the only guess we have is that they thought maybe someday in 1965, maybe they thought someday they'd keep building that way. I don't know. So this is interesting things. And then for the building project, like Mr. Hill said, the playground's been installed. Some sidewalks and curbs you can see out front. About 60% of the rooms have been punch list but not finalized, and we were able to move furniture into those parts of the building. The new furniture is set to arrive the week of June 21st, and the final furniture check will be the week of August 9th. And then August 16th, I say this tentatively, is a goal date for occupying the new building for the staff. So, but it's construction, so I'm not guaranteeing August 16th, but it's getting closer, so. And then on the football field project out there, the bleachers and press box have been removed. The woods were cleared for the shot and discus area. It turns out all the large trees out there were rotten. These really nice tall trees, but when they took them down to have to go to the local lumber mill, they weren't in the greatest condition. The 10-inch drain pipe, you come in from the practice field at the church, and then it heads along our north property line, and then it jogs to on the east side, and it kind of cuts off our property for a little bit. Well, some of the cedar trees have had their roots grow through it, and it's totally plugged, and then you get halfway on the east side, and then she's clean for the rest of the way again. So there's a section there where we're gonna have to relay that pipe in there, so that's gonna be a little extra cost. And when they removed the original, the track out here, they found a second track underneath it, which was the reason there was heaving going on, because the first track was there, the second track was laid on top of it. Water would get in between the two layers, thaw and unthaw, and that was what was causing heaving. So they gotta remove some of the original track now, but it's not too bad because we're moving the track like 30 feet to the east. So the turns, we don't have to worry about too much, it's just the two straightaways, but we're gonna get it straight this time out there, so. And then there's different bases, sometimes there's nice gravel, sometimes there's no gravel. So they're gonna get it all dug out nice and put the base in the correct way and get her going, so.
I appreciate that report, because some of our local historians were like, oh, it's awesome underneath there, it's all gravel, it's a good foundation, so that's why proof is in the pudding, right? You gotta go check it out.
Around the quarter mile, no, so, yeah, it was interesting.
As we age, our minds kind of look very positively.
Well, you know, and they did what they could with the funds they had at that time, so, you know, you do what you could, and there was
So
cinder tracks to
the
start with.
old track can remain and we'll put grass over the top of that?
They're gonna rip that out.
They've dug it out, and then they'll
I meant the one underneath it.
That's good, that's coming out too, they're gonna rip everything out,
Yeah, so they
except for
gotta-
the, well, on the corners, that'll stay, because then they're gonna put some fill on top of it.
That was my question. So
Yeah, yeah.
they're able to put fill over the top of the
They're not gonna dig out
second
more than half
generation
because
track
that's
and
expensive,
build on it.
right. So they're gonna save where they can, but they're gonna get it so we can plant grass. And then on the west side, I was gonna think north, east, southeast, west up there. The west side where we want to put a bathroom concession stand in the future, they're gonna get that set so we're ready for phase 2 when we get to phase 2. Yeah, so it's exciting.
I don't, how can they build a track on top of the track without raising the football field and everything else is interesting, I don't know.
Well, have you seen our football field now? Because they went out there with a disc and he was out there with the bulldozer today, so they'll bring it all to the right level now that they got it. No, it's all changing.
You know, oh, good, okay. Anything else on the
Do
buildings?
we have any problem with seekers, people sneaking in and trying to take peeks and?
Not that I know of. We had a problem with some kids following an adult coming across the football field and sneaking onto our current playground when this construction was out there, so we've re-locked that fence and told them, hey, don't come here during school day, you know, like, hey, so we haven't, if you go in that old building, if you go around the side there, you'll see Myron has put a lift across the driveway, so you can't drive back there. And they do that every night, and the fence is locked in the front. If you go in that building, you're taking a huge risk in life, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that don't have good
Yeah,
common
but I haven't
sense.
seen, I haven't caught anyone back there myself, no.
Rumor has it you were part of the demolition.
I did get to tear down part of the main door yesterday, yes.
Was our workman's comp covering you, or is that, you came under,
I got
Child
trained in
life-
about 3
Product
minutes how to run
liability.
that big
Signed
piece
the
of
paper
equipment.
before.
Yeah, they trained me how to do it, it was on.
I don't know if anyone saw this picture, but I have to tell you about this picture. They're taking that building apart, and they take a big bite out of the building, and everything comes down, pillars and everything, and that arch for the door stands there like that. Like, I've been here 100 years guarding this door, and I'm not going.
Did you post that picture?
I did,
It
it's.
sounded like your
great-
wording. No, it was cool. I did see that, yeah. It was
It's
very
just
neat.
amazing how it just stood there when everything else was,
Mhm.
Cool.
And I thought the great story was from the class of 60-something. You know, Mary Loves Billy or something like that.
Tom and Cheryl.
Tom and Cheryl,
It was
1971.
July 13th, 1971.
Any discovery on who they are yet?
No, but there's a lot
They're
of,
chatter in the
there's
town.
3 or 4 Cheryls in the 1971 yearbook, and there's quite a few Toms. Yes.
It'll come out
That'll
someday.
come out, that'll come out.
That was 50 years ago, I don't know. Yeah. It's pretty good stuff.
They're gonna have a class reunion this year, if they need.
Someone knows who they are. I'm sure they didn't write that up
They're
there
not
50
up
years ago
50
thinking it was
years,
gonna come out.
So, anything else on the buildings?
No, every day is an adventure, no, I mean, it's good stuff.
The only thing I noticed coming in here, there's a heck of a slope down to the front of the school, but I assume they're the experts, they got plenty of water.
That's what my husband said too, you're gonna have water there all the time.
They must have, the
Oh, with the
engineers
curving
have
and
been
stuff
there and
and the
stuff, I'm
drains.
assuming they know
They
where the
must
water
have-
They're
flows.
the experts.
Drains and stuff
That's
under
what
there.
a lot of people have asked me, and I haven't seen that, I haven't looked at that drawing, and I wouldn't, feel like has a tail, but I'm assuming we've had engineers look at it, they must
It
know
was
what
just
they're
right
doing.
where I parked is the only reason I know.
Right, right.
Legislatively soon.
Yes, the budget, of course, is the big thing at both the state and federal levels. Last week, we as the executive committee of WASB met with 4 of our legislators in Washington virtually, either them or their staff, Pocan, Gallagher, Grothman, and Steele. And I think they were quite supportive of the 3 things that we were asking for, one of which was broadband. And it was interesting, some of the comments that is the one topic that people can agree on now. There isn't much that people agree on these days, but they do agree with the need for broadband. We also talked about increased funding for special education. I know this is near and dear to Melissa's heart. And the final area that we talked about federally was the teacher shortage and the need for funding for increasing the pipeline of young people coming into the teaching profession, because it is serious. Well, we know with our tech ed, for instance, we didn't have 20 people applying for the job. And the same is true in many other areas. So we made our case to the feds on that. And then I did just see an email as I was coming in, and I didn't have time to read it, that our state legislators are coming up with a plan to not lose that federal funding. So I don't know exactly the details on that. But I do know that WASB, the rural schools, and the Fair Aid Coalition have been working feverishly with all of our legislators, and I've been communicating with Senator Jacques and Representative Kitchens on all of those areas as well, and will continue to do so. We did have a good session with the governor a week or so ago, sponsored by WASB. I don't know if you were in on that.
I was in.
Yeah, I think you signed up for it, but.
Yeah, but I was.
Yeah, and WASB and CISA 7, and we had about 34 participants on that virtual call, and the governor, of course, is very supportive of education, and we didn't need to twist his arm very hard, but it was good to have that communication with him. So more to come.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to old business then, and we have the second reading of policy 013.1, so if someone would like to make a motion on that.
I would move to approve the second reading of policy 013.1, bylaws and policies.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Bear is not here, so I'll go through this agenda that the committee kind of established at our first meeting, and we'll look for a couple of approvals today because we need those before the next meeting. We thought the date, August 22nd, Mr. Lukey pointed out that would be before the annual meeting, so we'd have the dedication before the annual meeting and then be able to do tours at the annual meeting. Now, if we don't get the occupancy permit on the 16th, can we tour the building?
I don't know, but I'll find out. I think by then they
I
got.
think you could probably.
My goodness, we're at the
with
end
the right
there.
safety precautions.
The time says 2 to 4. The program would begin at 2, not more than 30 minutes, hopefully 20 minutes, and then tours could run until 4 o'clock. We had some discussion outside or in the atrium. You know, we could stage everybody outside here and then cut the ribbon and let them go into the school. If it's a hot day, the atrium could be staged that we could open the library and what is now the multi-purpose room. We'd have the atrium for people to stand in. Speakers would be in the library multi-purpose room area, and then when the ribbon cutting, they just draw their attention to this front door. We'll skip budget for right now and go back to that. Yeah, Mr. Baer mocked together an invitation, which Mrs. Margraf is taking to Dennis Plur at Innovative Printing to have designed, and formal invitations would go to donors. We're developing a list of people that should get formal invitations. There's a Google document. There might be, with the CFAC, there might be 60 of those. And then other invitations would go to, the media and the news outlets, and out via the blast system that we have, where things go to all of the media, where it winds up in the newspapers and online and everything. We would have a welcome and recognition of the guests. The band would play the national anthem. There would be some short addresses. An elementary student, a middle school student, and a high school student will speak together, kind of like they do at graduation. And the administrative team is working on locating those students.
Linda Wade is confirmed.
Okay. Linda Waite is a community member of the CFAC, so she'll speak. Carl, at this point, Mr. Schultz would be able to speak. He isn't at home, but his family does take him out. He could attend and say a few words. If he does not, Mike Madden will speak on his behalf. And then there would be the superintendent. Well, I think we just decided the superintendent and the students. I don't think we had staff members speaking, did we? We didn't talk about staff members speaking.
I think that's plenty of speeches.
Yeah, we didn't talk about, that's, yeah. Well, the superintendent would be the last to speak and give the dedication. And I don't know how if you use that dedication off the dedication plaque or whatever, but
Sure.
we'll have to
I'll
figure
figure
that
it
out.
out.
And then the closing remarks would just be turning your attention to the front door for the ribbon cutting. There would be 3 more students to cut the ribbon, 3 different students to cut the ribbon. We talked about commemorative ribbons or stickers and mixed that. We talked about if we were outside, Myron has a confetti cannon that shoots biodegradable confetti, red and black. They were gonna do it for our groundbreaking, but we're not gonna be outside. So then we thought, well, maybe in the atrium we could do a controlled drop. You know how they gather it kind of in a big plastic whatever, and you cut it and it all falls down everybody, but we'll have to talk about that in cleaning.
Yeah, I don't like that on a brand new floor, but none of my business.
We'll work with Myron there, though.
Someone spills
And-
water and
and
then
actually
everybody's
Myron
saying something and.
Megan Prestebeck, who is Myron's marketing person, is gonna attend virtually next meeting. She thinks we got a really good start. She might have a few other ideas of things we can do. We'll set the stage up in the multi-purpose room. Seating, we can't set chairs for everybody. It'll be, those honored guests and a few other people. The band will play 10 minutes before the program and at the end of the program during the ribbon cutting. They will play the school song. School tours. We thought if we could get staff to come being staged throughout the building in the different areas, because it's hard to take a lot of people on a tour and keep them all together. So if people, and board members could help with that too, be staged in certain areas to kind of explain to people what's going on there.
Maybe just a suggestion, it'd be really neat if you had your members of the senior class give the tours.
Of the what?
Senior class. Have seniors do.
I think it might be hard to get them there here because they're all working.
What you're gonna do something, I don't know.
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon?
They work all different shifts. You wouldn't get them all, but you could maybe get a
We
herd of
get
them.
some,
I don't know.
I suppose we could put a call
Yeah,
out.
kind of a
We can
nice-
talk, we can talk about that at the next meeting.
Just a thought for, as a nice gesture.
Yeah,
Because
we
they
can
know
talk
as
about
much
that.
about the building as the staff.
We can talk about that at the next meeting, that's a good idea. We talked about a reception, inviting people down to the cafeteria for cookies and lemonade, and then we nixed lemonade because we didn't want lemonade on the floor, sticky lemonade. And committee, I know we talked about this, but do we really want to try to get people to go down to the we're in a time frame, right? We're here, so are we gonna send them all down to the cafeteria, have them walk around down there, and then back out here with cookies?
Committee will have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think we can talk about that. Mr. Bear is contacting Sunny Point Gardens to see if we can get some plant material flowers to dress up the entrance as we come in. We'll have carnation boutonnieres for the honored guests.
Are you gonna have plants in the building?
There's no plans for it, no. We don't have many currently.
Well, in a greenhouse.
Greenhouse.
The greenhouse could, that'd be an interesting project, I'm going for greenhouse, and have, like you go to buildings, there's a plot of something here, and plot of something there, and let them take care of it. That's their job. At the meeting. That's even not my, that's.
We'll work on that for,
That's
just
just
when the greenhouse gets up and running and the program
It
gets.
really adds a lot to a building.
So I think what we're looking for tonight are a couple of things. We always call our multipurpose room the multipurpose room, which is so, I think it should be the pioneer room. I think we should call what is the multipurpose room the pioneer room. It's has some pizzazz, it doesn't sound so utilitarian. And then the other thought was, we had the idea of, should we recognize Carl Schultz in some way? Maybe not that day, or maybe that day with a bench in the school or whatever. We could call that room the Carl Schultz Pioneer Room.
Multi-purpose room would be the Carl Schultz, okay.
I mean, when you say the name, it's not always gonna be Carl Schultz, it's gonna be the Pioneer Room. But it would be a way of recognizing someone that was with the school district for a long time and
Oh, you got the
accomplished a
name.
lot of firsts.
That's why I gave you on your table the naming of school facilities policy, so you can refer to that.
And you're thinking, Kyle, that item E would be the area that would apply here?
Well, I think B would qualify. I think Carl's gotta qualify for B, right?
I think he meets most of those, really.
I mean, does he not, I think he had to hit 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I just think at Sevastopol, if you're ever gonna dedicate anything to anyone, if you don't go with Carl Schultz first, then you don't do anyone else. I mean, he's it. And we've done some things, there's the Paula Simons Memorial Bench in the entranceway of the 91 gym, that's down there.
There's the Everett Roberts plaque out on the,
Everett Roberts
which
Memorial.
the FFA did, but the
Right,
school left
but it
to
ends
put
up
it
becoming
there.
the school's property. Out at the Eco Lab, there's 2 paths, one's Madden Way, one's Schultz Way. We've dedicated trees since 1969 for Arbor Day around here. And unfortunately with that is some of them have died, some of them have been tore up, and some of them we don't know where they ever were, So I got an idea how to solve that for next Arbor Day. But I think we've already done some naming of things, but actual room we've never have done or something like that. But I just think if you're gonna do it, and I would do it sooner than later with Carl.
Yeah,
Jerry?
Just a cautionary, nothing about Carl. I would not recommend you take the, what is this, design for an all-purpose room?
Mm-hmm.
It's like our multi-purpose room down there.
Okay, I would not name it after him because there's going to be a day, not in the next 5 years or 10 years, maybe after 10 years, you may have plans to do something else with that room. And it's very difficult and it's very emotional when you name rooms after people and then you take that name away because you're gonna use it for something else. I would recommend that you either like the atrium, which is always gonna be an atrium or a bench or something like that. Something that's always gonna be whatever it is. But when you take rooms and name it to people, that's really nice when it's brand new, but it's not always gonna be there. And I can speak from experience.
It's good insight.
Aunt Lizzie comes in like, well, this was named after my sister. Where's her room at now? Well, we tore that room down and made it into an audio-visual or a janitor's closet or something like that. It's nice and it sounds nice today when everything's brand new. It's not always gonna be there. It's not, so in honor to him, I would recommend you look at something that's always gonna be something, you know. Whether it's where the stairways come together or something like that, that's, maybe that's something. Or you have a concrete marble bench up front, it's always gonna be there. And it can be moved someplace. But I really, I have a really bad taste in my mouth.
So we're over 100 years old. Is there any other part of the building named after somebody? Just trees. You have trees
Not
next
that I know
door or
of,
something?
no.
I
Well,
share
yes, there
similar
is.
concern.
There was. The third floor teacher's lounge was the Steve Cromwell Lounge. Yep. And that's gone now. Yep.
No, I still have the plaque.
You still got the plaque, right, but the room is
Oh,
gone. Yep.
all right.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jerry. Oh, there it was.
Yeah.
Well,
That isn't even that many years, I could see Cromwell was here, right? Yeah.
we can take this up at our next meeting. I suppose we could do some kind of a bench. We could do Carl Richard. Or you stair, we could do Carl Richard.
Yeah, or the
Carl
atrium's
Schultz.
not gonna go.
Carl Schultz,
But,
atrium.
and you would think a room like the multi-purpose room wouldn't disappear, but the original gym and the original auditorium in the 1924, those both disappeared. Yeah,
So we will
it is
not,
possible to
so
disappear, so.
we will not be looking for approval on that. The other item I'm gonna go back to is the budget. The budget isn't much except for one item.
And we will get $250 from the Sevastopol Historical Society toward the
There was
refreshments.
there was a thought that every student and staff member would get a T-shirt that said new school, new opportunities. And that cost is, I lost my page here, I think it was $7,000.
$5,500.
$5,500. I know we talked about this at the committee level, but now in thinking about it, committee, and we would have to have board approval on this to move forward. And thinking about it, it seems, I know they do T-shirts for the kids every year.
And maybe Aaron should expand on that a little bit and tell them how you've done the T-shirts for elementary kids at the beginning of the year.
At the beginning of the year, and we don't have them ready to go the first day of school, we wait until school starts because we want to make sure that we've got the right sizes for the kids. And they grow a lot over the summer, so we send those forms out in the fall, and during that first week of school, we collect that back, and then we put the order in. Even as fast as quality has been for us, those usually don't come back for at least 2, maybe 2.5 weeks further. So you're talking about a month with all the timeline involved.
And Aaron, are you guys planning on doing that this fall again?
We had talked about that with the PTO
So
doing
maybe
that.
that becomes the model.
PTO,
for
I
the
think, has
shirt.
been involved with that
Yeah.
in the past, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that becomes the model for the shirt and give them out at a later date when you know their sizes and.
Could be, I mean, on the order form itself, it indicates that there's no cost involved because it's being sponsored and some of that kind of information, so we make it very clear. I think we've opened the opportunity for staff to purchase some if they wanted to, and then we compile all that and send that order in. So, let's do it.
The thought was the shirt would say new school, new opportunities, and I think that means something to a lot of us, but I don't know that it necessarily means anything to kids, the elementary kids.
It won't be any.
So, so I think the committee should go back and look at that, and we wouldn't look for.
Let's
Probably
revisit that.
Some will, some won't. Some will be excited about it. If I was a senior, I might not be so excited about getting a shirt that says new school. Hey, I'm still going to Sevastopol, you know, but.
Well, that was my thought too, is it, what do you define as a school? this school's been here for 100 years, it's not a new school. We have a new brick building, not a new school. So just an opinion, I'm just saying, when I first read that, I'm indifferent, by the way, do whatever you want, but
The cost concerns me. I think it's every kid, every staff, we just gave the staff all shirts a while ago. So I think we shouldn't look for approval on that tonight. We should go back to the drawing board on it a little bit. So I think all we look for approval for is the date. It's on the 22nd.
Yeah, we'll talk about the dedication in July again and finalize this at the July meeting.
Well, I think that, I'm hoping that will be enough time for Dennis Kluwer to print. No, that should be plenty of time for him to print programs.
The next board meeting is July 15th.
Yeah.
And I think you guys could do, could you do programs and invitations without the whole board approval for that? I mean,
And banners.
yeah, I think it
Okay. So we'll bring that.
did you want to approve part of the budget minus the t-shirts? Or is that, those numbers are okay? You don't need that?
You probably don't need approval. I mean, what's the limit? What do we have for a
right,
limit?
so that's
Charge
the
on it.
5,000. We can
Yeah.
do, if you take the t-shirts off, we're okay.
Yeah.
Take the t-shirts off, we're at 1,500.
Yeah, we're okay.
Minus 250,
Oh, from the
Historical
historical.
Society.
Historical Society.
Yeah, we can, that's manageable next year's budget.
So that's, any other comments from anybody?
I was just saying that, move the committee with example. I do think it's appropriate to give some kind of a memento, not the shirt, because the shirt's not gonna last. As soon as they grow out, it's gone into the next kid. I don't know, some type of memento. They'll probably take it and throw it in the drawer someplace, but sometime.
To the kids?
Open it up.
Give them a memento. to the
Everybody
Well,
kids.
when I said memento, I was thinking, when we were the blue ribbon school, everybody got these little blue ribbon things. Mine is still in my car. You could do, that would be cheap, a business card magnet would be an inexpensive memento for someone to take with them. So, and that would be the people at the
Ceremony, yeah.
ceremony.
Dedication.
So that's where we
Give
are.
them all a break.
Oh,
Help us save our costs, take a break.
It's a great idea.
There are people that are buying $550 and $300 bricks. I don't know what they're gonna do with them, but
Our tax bills are probably gonna go down, because it's gonna be offset the construction costs of the
By
bricks.
each brick.
is that comment, we've done a great thing here for the school, and luckily we're healthy, our budget's strong. Well, for a public school to give out mementos, is that stuff people do? I mean, I don't,
Should we ask Myron?
I think the plan is, by the way,
That's a good idea.
the committee has put a lot of work into that plan, that looks awesome.
Ask Myron's one person, what other schools have done it.
yeah, Megan Prestebeck is gonna
Yeah.
attend our next meeting,
Just, I don't
so
know,
we'll get some.
we're still being good stewards of the dollar, and 50% of those kids, well, maybe they do. You guys tell me, I think 50.
I was not thinking about the kids, I was thinking about
Oh.
the adults that are coming.
Oh, I lost track, we were talking kids
Well,
and
the
t-shirts.
shirts were kids,
Yeah.
the memento was more,
I think we're on different wavelengths. I was thinking kids too.
oh, you were thinking kids too. Give them a break.
Yeah.
But there's other inexpensive ideas, even like pencils.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's, you can get hundreds of those printed for relatively little.
Ballpoint pens.
Well, if you have other ideas like that, send them to us and we'll take them up. Thank you.
You probably have a catalog of,
We're gonna go back to goals each meeting for a little bit, and I'm looking at that goals sheet from 2018. We checked some of those off last time around. AP courses, I know that we had a presentation, maybe it's 2 years ago already, on AP courses. Next year, what I'd like a presentation on is if we've made any progress in that, and how the weighted grade system is working out for those grades that it now applies to. I think that next year's juniors will be the ones that are,
Yes.
next year's juniors are the ones that will have kind of been under that program for 3 years. So I think we should maybe next year in the summer have an update on how if that's having any impact, no impact, how it's working.
Are we 3 years into that? Or, so next year's juniors, so
Next-
this year's sophomores.
This year's soft,
We're in we just finished year 2. Yeah,
so
right?
this year's junior class will have had 3 years of it. 21,
Correct.
22 junior class will have had 3 years of it. We implemented the gifted and talented program. Technology has taken a big step forward. Tech ed, I guess, continues to be a work in progress. We've got a new teacher, we've got a new facility, so we'll see what new programs they come up with in there.
That CNC thing sounds interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, we gotta get enough folks in it, you know?
Does TC's bus come here? I mean, truck, does it come here at all?
I've never seen it, no.
I mean, have we, they have all these labs. I mean, they have all this stuff like CNC and all this stuff on trucks.
Mm-hmm.
They take it around the district.
We had it here once,
I haven't seen it in the last 4 years.
but this would have been more than 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Remember they?
I remember it out in the parking lot.
Semi,
I remember
yeah.
going in and seeing it, but that was a while
They
ago.
come and do courses with it.
So that's a whole cycle of kids that went through it, didn't see it.
And then the lunch program,
We had the committee get formed, but that's about it.
formed a committee. I think what could be fun is when the greenhouse gets going, is kids growing things that can get served in the cafeteria. You can't serve 600 kids with it, but you got lettuce to serve 25 kids someday, or tomatoes.
Yeah, you mix it with what you purchase and,
So we'll stop there. So we made some good progress on those goals, and some of them are gonna be continued works in progress, but I'll keep that on my calendar for the request for follow-up next summer on AP, where we are with that, and weighted grades. And then the pillar goal, the administrative team gave us a recap here. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about on that?
Not too much to add, other than Ms. Margraff and I contacted CISA the other day just to have them help us kind of wrap our hands around some of the data. And as you might imagine, there's lots of schools who are asking for that. So some of that timetable is pushed back further than we would like. It will include not being able to really get access until about October. But there are some things that we can do leading up to that. We can do some internal analysis of some of those numbers, map data. Some of that information doesn't come out until late July. Some of it will be available closer to the annual meeting when we usually present to you how the school is doing. Obviously, state report cards aren't going to be included as a part of that, but there's other data that we can bring forward that becomes available then, especially as we start comparing ourselves to some of the other area districts that are like-sized, that kind of thing. That data becomes available. We can get access to some of our internal, but we can't see how we compare to others until that point. And that will certainly give us some important information just to see how that has progressed over this last year with COVID and those kind of things. So,
Is there a value in making some educated guesses on where we think we could be? And what I mean by that is, so you have a longer time to prepare for, and the big challenge, and some of, do we hire temporary staff? How would we do that? Who would do that? Who reports to them? That's not a 1 week turnaround.
sure.
So I'm just wondering, yes, and same with this equity, whenever you define out what that is, right? We're talking about equity funding, and there's a big push by Congress to use that money. Well, what can we spend that money on, right? So I'm just wondering is, instead of waiting for the data to come, then the process starts to say, all right, we need more math. And all those same questions are gonna be asked, that you could probably come up with 75 of them now. Is it augmenting staff? Is it adding a bus route? I don't know, to help kids stay later. So maybe we have a program where the kids can stay later and they get a bus ride home, so it's an additional bus. I mean, these are the brainstorming things that we could probably do. I say we, not me, not meaning me, but I don't want to, but I'm just saying, to really maximize taking advantage of government funds, you don't do that overnight. You got to put a long strategic plan together, the admin team's got to be on board. How are we going to do this? Do we hire people? And are we willing to hire someone for 2 years? Dave Gack is, because it's, I mean, but maybe not, I don't know, for the school, I mean. So that's all, the only thing is, what I hear is, we don't have the data to make hard decisions. I get it, but then when we just had someone brief us about we're waiting for data, but they waited 18 years. I don't like to be part of that group who waits forever, because there were people on the CFAC that didn't even want to do the school, by the way. They didn't have enough data, right? We had that discussion. But no, you move out on it. That's how you do it. And so I'm just thinking that as we catch our wind over the summer, or whatever you guys do to relax for your summer, and work hard during the summer, whatever that is, let's not wait for the data. Let's start talking about how are we going to spend money. Someone defined equity for me so I know how we can spend money, right? So let's start doing it. And that's my only thing is, what would that look like? And I'm not really asking for anything because I know we're all busy, and that's very busy, and your staff is all moving over, and they're all panicked for this occupancy date when I talk to them, you know, and we all better start helping people out in August because it's going to be a lot of craziness, right? And I mean that sincerely because I've always helped my teacher wife. So anyways, just food for thought on this ESSER money. We talk about this stuff, but I'm just telling you, I've chased government money for 22 years. You don't do it overnight. And just like Mr. Pavick said, they've been putting in grants for years and years and they fail. Well, let's not fail. And how do you not fail? You prepare. You brainstorm. You talk about good ideas. So let's talk about it, you know. I just thought about that today.
To give you a quick answer, I
Run
think,
buses after sports.
I think we do, we are having those conversations as administrators, you know, where are some areas that we can try and address? Like you said, kind of almost that educated guess
Right.
of what
Okay,
we're
good.
looking at.
Thank
I think even in terms of looking at the data, it's not that we're looking a year out. One of the things we even talked about was the possibility, if we see a need, are there some people coming out, graduating at semester time from colleges that might be able to fill some positions that we could use in some short-term type situations. So we have had some of those conversations.
Thank you. I just didn't know that. I'm glad you're saying that. That's all, because as long as the brain juices are flowing, critical thinking of our smart staff members, it's got to be going on now.
Well,
And
the
thank
other
you
part
for saying
that's
that.
important is like the internet for the county. All right, it goes 18 years, that's a problem, but who really cares? These kids only got till their
Yeah.
class graduates, you know? They have a time frame where they're gone, you know? So if we went 18 years off the internet, okay, you could last 19 or 20, so you already did it for 18 years, you could last 2 more years, which is inconvenient and bad, but so what? These kids, they graduate, they're done, you know, that's it, they're out the door. So their window shuts,
Yeah,
you know?
thanks, yeah, great point.
What are you, I suspect you guys have pretty good ideas of what's going to take place. What have you, 2 questions. What did you experience from an educational point of view during this period of time when all the kids came back? And number 2, what are you seeing in national data of what the effects of COVID have been on education, I mean, where they're at? Because this is my own personal thing. I really am very frightened, not just, this isn't just here, but nationally in our educational system, that the U.S. continues to sink lower and lower in math and reading skills. And I don't see anybody pushing a panic button to do anything about it. I see us going off in other tangents, popular tangents at the time, as opposed to saying, how are we going to get our kids back to where they were in the 60s? Great times. But anyway, back to or they were in this country was in the 60s, because there are some really bad characters out there who have their schools, 1, 2, 3 in the world, ready to eat these kids' lunch. I don't have to worry about it. I mean, I'll be 6 feet under. But as a society, our lunches are gonna get eaten if we still perform at the, I don't know where we're at now, the 23rd level, 18th level in reading and math scores. And it keeps going down. And we're worried about other things. I don't understand why, so anyway.
Two quick answers on that. The first one, how do we compare nationally, some of those kind of things. I think it's very difficult to say any one blanket statement about how we're doing nationally, especially after the COVID situation, because there are so many different examples of what districts decided to do. I mean, you can look within our own county, you could look just outside the county. I mean, there were how many schools, how many different plans. So it's really, really hard to compare.
What I'm really asking is, what are you seeing in literature about what the results of COVID are across the country? Now, there's
if I may,
examples.
the test data's not out yet, that's what he said
Well, but
earlier,
there's,
right?
there's gotta be some people doing some research that's starting to write
There's some, but
papers
again,
about
you have
what's happened.
to add the caveat of where are they doing that research.
Right.
You know, if they're doing that research in New York and LA, they're gonna get very different responses than they are if they're doing rural Wisconsin. So that's one piece to it. The one thing that I would say is kind of a common thread everywhere is the social emotional. And that leads me into the answer to your other point is a lot of those countries that are ahead of us in math and reading, they're focused on math and reading. We're focused on the whole child, and we keep getting more and more added to our plate. You know, back in the
That's the
60s, they
truth
weren't
right there.
teaching the kids morals, they weren't teaching the kids respect. That was all stuff that was happening at home, and now that's happening here at school, and that's going to take some time. So,
And we educate all children, not all countries do, or not all countries test all children.
That's fine, but the reality is, these countries are gonna be at it. When we get into the techie world of the future, these countries, these people are gonna be much better positioned to have the brains developing and looking at solving those problems. I understand it, but the reality is we've gotta find a way, we gotta stop the flow downhill.
Some baby steps that we have done in this team,
And-
and it's how you fix it one day at a time, right?
Right.
Those science books right there. We had to cause a ruckus for the science program. We ain't done yet, right? And same with the math. And so these gaps, if we find gaps in our middle school and talk to our, what I say would be great math teachers in elementary, ask them what they need for help, and just leverage this gap analysis for the next year to help with you. Because I'm with you, you know, you don't solve that overnight, you know that.
No.
But what we can focus on is what our responsibility is, and it's per DPI, it's our student learning objectives, right? And and Sue asked me this, you mentioned this a few meetings ago, that you would appreciate better data on how we're doing it, something like that, right? Yeah, she had it better than me. So we would all, right? And that's what we just need to keep driving our hardworking admin team and staff to keep raising that bar. But we also gotta know there's gonna be some kids that are gonna go right into the workforce, they don't need a lot of math. And they're still gonna be amazing, because someone's gotta hook up my broadband and, you know, and stuff like that, and you know, run everything, all the welders and plumbers and stuff, but.
at the same time, the one last quick point is, you know, with the people that I have connections to around the state, different districts, those kind of things, I do think that Sevastopol did a very nice job of making sure that we stayed student focused, and especially the way we ended up the year being in person for over that last quarter, I think really positioned us well, especially when you compare us to a lot of school districts.
A lot of positive comments in the community, and also from visitors who come here would say, what is your school doing? Are they, you know?
We've had a number of families who have checked us out because they have a residence up here from the Chicago area, and they were floored with what we offer, because they said down in Chicago, how did they put it? Our regular ed is far superior to what special ed is in terms of their personalized care of students at some of the
You
schools.
would never
down
want
there.
your kid
So-
going to Chicago school.
But,
So-
But then
I
when
mean,
you
that's,
talk about the national average, Chicago pales our number of students that we're producing, and no country stays on top forever. I mean, that's just how the
So
world works.
globally, my concern is Sevastopol and this.
Yep.
We compare ourselves to Sturgeon Bay, the schools in our conference, Algoma, Kiwanee, Sturgeon Bay, and we're great, our reading scores are way up here, our math scores are way up here. That we don't rest on that laurel, that we don't continue to push ourselves beyond that. We can't just be better than these guys. Now we have to see where we can push our students a little further.
Good, well, because that's what I think the gap. I don't care about the national average. It's what we found the last quarter of the school year. You talk to any Beth Rickla, any one of these teachers, pick anyone you want, they know where their kids were. Let's focus on those gaps right now. Start writing up the things to go get money. How are we gonna fix that? And I don't care about national averages, because if Sevastopol drives to obtain where we were before and can keep driving, because you're right, national averages,
No, that's
data can be manipulated so many ways, and so it's a data point, it's not artificial intelligence.
Right.
Let's
The
fix
national
our
average
kids.
is the average. I think what we have here is something which is very, very good. And my personal opinion is we need to develop a mentality. We now want to go from good to great.
Would be great.
And if there's money available, I always
Do you
like.
think, and money is an excuse, should not be used as an excuse. There's ways you can go from good to great
Yes, well, that,
without
yes, sir.
spending a lot more money.
I really like that good to great, because if we say we're great, then we can rest.
Well, no.
Yeah, no, that's what people, that's what you do when you're
That's
like,
what
I'm
you do
great,
when
I
you
can
think you're
rest.
great.
Yeah,
But yeah, Blue Ribbon School,
I'd still prefer to use what Lombardi had said, that you try and achieve perfection. You'll never get there, but along the way, you'll be very successful.
That's right. Yep, same, yeah, exactly.
I think that was Ditka that said that, not.
We'll have to do business and look to renew the WIAA membership for 2021-2022.
I would move to approve the 2021-2022 WIAA membership renewal.
second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Fundraising protocol.
Yeah, I had this added on the agenda because if you look at the form, it has school board approval, and so I don't think you guys need to know about a cookie dough sale or pizza sale. We put all fundraising on hold last year, and typically we try and bring you all of them in September. Well, September comes and the track coach doesn't know what he's gonna do in the spring. We may even know who our coach is in the spring, and so then here it sits with school board approval, and I'm not gonna put this on the agenda every month for you guys to look through every fundraiser and say, well, how much do they have in their account and stuff, so I think I'd like to take that line off, but I wasn't gonna take that off without your permission.
Well, I think you should change your policy that the school board approval only applies to capital fund drives.
Yeah, but
I think in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a better handle on fundraising where if they're gonna raise money, they have to be able to tell the administrative team or Mr. Lukey what it's for, and people aren't holding a lot of money in their activity
Right.
accounts.
We spend a lot of time on that.
yeah, it's a good, I inherited that.
But we've
same
never,
as Team
we've
Problem.
never stopped a fundraising thing. So I don't think it should come to the school board.
Yeah, it's not really.
No,
but it's
I don't
on
think it
here,
needs to
it says
come to the
school
school board.
board.
Let's get rid
So
of
would
that.
someone like to make
But
a
she
motion
says on there,
to?
so-
I move we change the form as recommended to remove the school board approval for fundraising.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Did you capture all that? Sorry. Yep.
So, I put in front of you something I got from WASB on that superintendent evaluation framework video that I sent. I'm gonna reinforce, this is not because I think we need to further evaluate the superintendent. It's so that we do a better job, because I don't think the form we have does a good job. And if we wanna go from good to great, we need to evaluate properly, Mr. Kaperinsky has said many times.
That form we have been using is old. We've had it for ever.
Um,
So I think this is good, and I've talked to board members from a couple school districts who are using it, and they're very pleased with it.
It's for 3 years, $600 for 3 years. They will send someone on site to do a training with us. It's a 2-hour training. She said boards usually don't use the whole 2 hours. The training lasts about an hour, and they use the last hour for goal setting or brainstorming. So, discussion, motion?
I would move to approve the WASB Superintendent Evaluation Framework and Process.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Okay, so
One question, I'm sorry, what is it?
I was gonna ask you, if you like this?
yeah, I watched the video with Dan Neerveld on there, and yeah, I like it. I'm good with it.
Is it a yearly fee?
It's
$600 for 3,
For 3
So
years.
it's
$200 a year.
For three, but it's a 3-year commitment. Yeah, I think it's good.
It's pretty cheap.
Okay. Good.
Other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We look for a motion to approve Heather Spatz as JV2 volleyball coach.
I would move to approve Heather Spetz as the JV2 volleyball coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Our next school board meeting is July 15th. Date will be set for the property buildings and security meeting,
That's June 28th.
June 28th.
Yeah, 7:30.
The equity committee meets with,
We have a virtual meeting with that.
with the Search Institute.
Right.
Is that the company that has the survey? Communications, I'm not sure when that is, and athletics, you'll be setting a date for that. If there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried at 8:36 PM.